For our last lesson in our matter unit, we talked about physical properties of matter. We said these are properties that can be observed and can be measured without changing the identity of a substance. But in today's lesson, we're going to be talking about the other group of properties that matter can have, and these are what are called chemical properties. Now, a chemical property is basically just the opposite of a physical property. We said that physical properties can be observed without changing a substance, without a chemical reaction. But chemical properties are properties that can only be observed through a chemical reaction or through changing the substance. Now, when we talk about changing a substance, we're talking about not just changing maybe the shape or the color or the way it looks, but we're talking about actually changing one substance into a new substance. So we're talking about the molecules that actually make up the substance are being changed into different types of molecules. Hydrogen peroxide is an example we looked at in class with this. It starts out with 2 hydrogen atoms and 2 oxygen atoms, but by chemically changing it, it breaks down into water and oxygen gas. So those molecules are actually being changed. They're changed from hydrogen peroxide molecules into oxygen molecules and water molecules. That's the type of change we're talking about when we talk about a chemical reaction taking place, a change that forms a new chemical compound. And this process of forming new chemical compounds is what's known as a chemical reaction. That's where molecules are broken apart or combined to make new substances from what we started with. Now, there's several different examples of chemical properties, and just like with our list of physical properties, this is nowhere near inclusive. There's many, many more chemical properties that different substances can have. But these are just a few as an example, and these are some that we'll be looking at over the course of some labs and some experiments that we do in class. The first of the properties on our list here is flammability, and that just determines whether something is able to catch on fire, whether it's able to burn. For instance, paper has the property of flammability. If I hold a lighter under some paper, the paper will burn. Toxicity determines whether something is toxic, whether it would be harmful, poisonous to our bodies. And again, toxicity is one of those things that happens because of chemical reactions once it gets into our body. So if something is toxic to humans, that means it would react badly with our body and it would cause us to get sick or even kill us. Heat of combustion is a property that's a little bit different than flammability, but they kind of tie in together. And heat of combustion just describes how much heat something gives off when it's burning. Flammability tells us will it burn. Heat of combustion tells us how hot will it burn. Oxidation is a property we'll be looking at probably in one of the first labs we do with this lesson. And oxidation has to do with substances giving off or getting extra electrons and reacting with oxygen. Oxidation reactions can be a lot of fun, and we've got a couple really cool ones that we'll be looking at in some of our lab videos that we have coming up in the next week or two. Chemical stability or reactivity just describes how easily or how difficult is it for a chemical to be involved in a chemical reaction. And again, this is a chemical property because the only way we can test this is through using that chemical in a chemical reaction to see how reactive it is or how stable it is. And the last chemical property on our list here is pH. And that just determines if a chemical is an acid or base. And we'll be looking at some acid-base experiments and reactions as well over the course of this unit. So this was a pretty short lesson today on chemical properties, but we're going to be doing a lot of really neat stuff with this information. So it's important, with the physical properties and the chemical properties, the information's pretty simple, but understanding that is going to lay the foundation for what we're going to be doing in the weeks to come as we get into the different physical and chemical changes, as we actually start taking matter, manipulating these properties, and we're going to do some really cool stuff with that. So I do look forward to seeing you in our next several videos as we continue talking about different properties of matter and how those properties can change.